Howdy, y'all. Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to the District 6 Candidate Forum. Oh my gosh. Come on, Alan! Flop about. You don't have to go home now. You're wonderful. Welcome to the District 7 Candidate Forum. It is my privilege to be here tonight, to be here as MC. I'm super excited for tonight. Tonight's forum is titled Building an Abundant Austin. And we have a statement of our vision. Our vision of an Austin that is welcoming and affordable to people of all walks of life, the young and the old, the newcomers and the old hats, the rich and the poor. We want our beautiful city to be a bastion that gives everyone an opportunity, both economic and social, to live a good life where they can comfortably afford the rent and have easy access to friends, food, fun, healthcare, amenities, and essentials. We envision an Austin that gives everyone prosperity and dignity without having to make choices that are unsustainable for both themselves and our planet. Essential to these things is choices that we give to our citizens and how they are allowed to live and move about throughout the city. Okay, I'm excited. First of all, I want to thank Austin Community College for giving us this wonderful space. I want to let you know that they've been exceedingly generous and welcoming hosts. It has been an absolute pleasure working with them. I especially want to thank Michelle Raymond, who has done a great job coordinating with us. I also want to thank all our coalition partners, Aura, Safe Streets Austin, Farming City, Weekend 35, BAN, Environment Texas, Sunrise ATX, Austin New Liberals, and New Liberals. I also want to thank our candidates for being here tonight. I think it's great to be able to hear from them, for them to come and engage our community on these important topics. And last but not least, I want to thank our wonderful team of organizers. I want to thank our core team of organizers, Zach Faddis, Amy DeLuna, Peter Breton, Ryan Suzecki, Felix DePortu, and Felicity Maxwell. Before introducing our moderator tonight, I want to do a little bit of programming. So this forum will be split into two parts. There'll be a 15-minute intermission at 7:30, during which our partners will introduce themselves. Then the forum will continue to 8:30. Okay, I'm very excited about this. I think it's a wonderful privilege to have the current Mayor Pro Tem representing District 7, got it right in my mind this time, be able to have a moderate the forum that will essentially be one of the candidates who will represent the future district, the district in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and read out her bio. Leslie Poole was elected in 2014 to serve on the first 10-1 council representing District 7 in Central North Austin. We elected 2 additional terms in 2016 and 2020. Poole is now the council's Mayor Pro Tem. She will complete her work on council early next year following the inauguration of the new representative for District 7 on January 6, 2025. Poole focuses on building resilience into Austin's fast-paced urban growth through sustainability, housing, transportation improvements, expanding the housing availability through the Home Initiative, Home Options for Mobility and Equity, championing Austin's first light rail initiative, Project Connect, authorizing funding for new rail stations, and extending Austin's system for sidewalks and bike and walking trails. The Mayor Pro Tem chairs an oversight committee for the city's electric and water utilities, the integration of land management coordination committee responsible for the Balcones Canyonlands Wildland Preserve. She is the vice chair of Council's Audit and Finance Committee and the vice chair of the Capital Metropolitan Transportation Authority's governing board and the member of its Finance and Audit Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to our moderator, Mayor Pro Tem Leslie Poole.
How's everybody tonight? First off, I want to thank you for inviting me to moderate this forum. It's really a privilege. And I guess I get to do it because I'm kind of looking at the end of my term, but it has also been a real privilege to serve the city of Austin as the District 7 representative. I have some really good memories, and we've been through a lot. My chief of staff is here today, although we're not here in our official capacity, obviously, but Louisa has been by my side for almost the full nearly 10 years, and we've seen a lot. We've made good friendships, and we've been through some wars, the pandemic being one of them. So grateful to be alive and to be here with all of you tonight. I think we have a couple things I'll just mention. Everyone will have a minute for the opening question, which is essentially a scene-setting introductory. And then we will move to the questions, which will have 2-minute time limits. And I think Zach has a yellow book and a red book in order to handle the timing. It will be a tight time schedule that we've got, but hopefully we'll get a lot of really good responses out. We have 5 of 6 announced candidates with us tonight. Edwin Batista, Gary Bledsoe, Adam Powell, Todd Shaw, Mike Siegel. That's in alphabetical order, and I will start the questioning in alphabetical order, and then we'll go round robin. And then I think Alan has a statement to read from Pierre Nguyen, who was not able to be here today. And then the intermissions, you all know about this. So the lead-off question, and we start with Edwin. Mr. Bautista, tell us about yourself, and you have 1 minute, and why you are running for the council to represent District 7.
Alrighty, thank you everybody for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here. My name is Edwin. I am running for District 7, and I was born and raised here in Texas, Wichita Falls, a small town, North Texas. I moved here in 2016 to pursue a degree in urban studies, and earned that degree in 2020, which of course was not a great year to earn a degree. But nonetheless, I pursued another degree a year later in community and regional planning, and I completed that degree last summer. And now I'm working as a planner for a consulting firm. I help rural communities in Texas plan their comprehensive plans. And I'm excited to share my vision with you and hopefully earn your support and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batista. Mr. Bledsoe, Gary Bledsoe, 1 minute.
Thank you all very much for being here, and thank you, Madam Councilwoman, for agreeing to moderate this panel. My name is Gary Bledsoe. I've been a resident of District 7 before it was District 7. I've lived here since 1983. And I think some of you guys may not have been born in 1983. But I've seen the community grow and have been part of it for many, many years. The community that I love and I want to see move into the future. The reason I'm running is I think this is an extremely important time in our city. And there are a lot of things that are occurring, some of them that maybe are not really obvious to the eye. Where you need a real strong and heavy hand to make sure that the Austin that we've developed, that we fought to make into a better place, continues to be the kind of place we want it to be. And I think I can provide the type of leadership to make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe. Our next candidate, Adam Powell. Mr. Powell.
Hey y'all, my name is Adam Powell, running for City Council in North Austin's beautiful District 7. And the reason why I'm running is really personal. It's being born here in Austin, Texas, St. David's Hospital, right up of I-35, but I didn't have the privilege of being raised in Austin, Texas. I was raised in Leander because both of my parents were educators, and that was the place that they could afford housing, set down roots, buy a house for me and my siblings to grow up in. And it was a great upbringing. I don't have any complaints, but it's been troublesome. It's been very difficult to see so many people I grew up with who haven't had the same opportunity to return to Austin proper or pushed out of the area entirely. So the housing crisis, the absolute crisis of affordability we're facing stirred me to run so that everyone who wants to exist in Austin, Texas is truly welcome here, finds housing that they can afford. I was able to make my way, but I don't want to be a privilege, I want to be right, and I want folks to feel welcome here in the best city in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Shaw, Todd Shaw.
Hello, can you hear me? Todd Shaw, also running for District 7. So, a bit about me, I have a vision for the city. So I've been around since '81. I want to celebrate and strengthen those Austin values that all of us are kind of at the core of who we are, our identity here is Austin. But on the same token, we have to make some changes here, bold changes to prepare and for the unprecedented population growth that's already happened. And when I look at the predictions, it's going to go up and it's going to increase. We got to be ready with and also with climate change. So what do I bring? Also, I've been a 30-year public servant with Austin Energy. I've been dealing with climate change and other environmental issues since I joined that team in 1986. On the Planning Commission, I had six years. So if you want somebody that knows how to deal with climate change and will make sure we have affordable housing through my experience on the Planning Commission, I'm the guy you want to vote for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Siegel, Mike Siegel.
Good evening, y'all. Mike Siegel. Really glad to be here with all of you here today. I bring 25 years of experience as a public school teacher, civil rights lawyer, and community organizer to this race. And in particular in Austin, I've been both someone who's organized in the community to pass important policy, and I worked at City Hall as a city attorney, so I know how things are done on the inside. I'm running because I really care about this community, and I really see, especially in this room, a wonderful vision of what Austin could become. With my wife, we live in Crestview. We have 2 kids who go to the public schools, and I want them to have a community that they can grow up in. We're experiencing climate change. We have a lot of crises that this community is facing, and I want to help bring people together to solve these kinds of problems. I also bring my experience as a former city worker. One of the things I care about is this idea that the nurses in our community, the teachers in our community, the people who work at City Hall can't afford to live in this community. And to me, that's something we really have to take on to move forward together, to confront climate change and have an equitable environment for all. Thanks all.
Thank you. We'll move now to the questions from the different, oh yeah, that's right. Alan's going to read the statement from Pierre Gwynn.
Hello everyone, I'm reading a statement from Pierre. He can't make it tonight. I have not read the statement before, I've not seen it before. I don't represent his organization. I will read it as quickly as possible to get under the time limit. I regret to inform you, due to my military obligations, I am unable to attend the candidate forum this evening. However, I would like to share my perspective on housing and transportation, which are very important to me. I grew up as the son of hardworking refugee parents in New York City, where I was deeply influenced by New York's rich, diverse culture. In New York's transit, walkability, and bike are not just modes of transportation, but integral parts of our daily lives and identity. My advocacy for urban mobility was marked by an involvement in many bike advocacy groups in major cities across the country, including my work with the Boston Cyclist Union, where I championed bike lanes and became deeply involved in the local bicycling community. Volunteering time in bike ride clinics in low-income neighborhoods to empower more bike riders. I recognize my experience comes from a place of privilege as an able-bodied individual, currently childless, dual-income household. I'm acutely aware that many of our communities do not have the same mobility options. This is why public transport remains one of my top priorities, especially in North Austin. Our neighborhood is one of the most diverse parts of the district, known as Lamar International District. We're home to immigrants from across the globe who contribute to many industries throughout Austin. Yet, I have seen firsthand how disproportionately underserved these communities are. These people who inspire me the most work tirelessly behind the scenes in kitchens and essential roles, many of whom had the honor of working alongside myself in the back of the house. It is their voices that I am committed to amplifying, focusing on equity issues to ensure that those who consistently have a voice are heard and represented. My goal is to improve infrastructure in a way that benefits everyone, ensuring that our city's development is inclusive and equitable. We are at a pivotal point in our city's evolution, and it's crucial to ask ourselves, who is the city being built for? It's imperative that we move forward with authenticity and intentionality. I am eager to be part of the conversation and hope to engage with you in the future. Thank you for your understanding and continued support. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me for any dialogue or questions. I am always open to discussion and as my schedule permits. In service, Pierre.
And we let that was longer than a minute, but that's because Mr. Gwynn isn't here to answer any additional questions. All right, so we will move now to the 2-minute questions, and I will identify the group asking the question. This first one, we start with Gary Bledsoe. This is Friends of Austin Neighborhoods. What is your vision for communities in District 7, and what does a vibrant neighborhood look like to you?
Well, my neighborhood, Millwood, it's a Millwood neighborhood where young people who are starting out or families can move into for between $500,000 and $600,000. That's really affordable nowadays in Austin. What I would like to see would be neighborhoods like that, where they are affordable so that young people can have an opportunity and move into those neighborhoods, and where they mesh in, like in that neighborhood, with the older residents, where you see everyone walking, everyone intermingling. You see people of different age groups that are walking together. But you also want to make sure that your neighborhood is safe. You want to also make sure that there's not much traffic in your neighborhood. And you also want to make sure that when those environmental hazards occur, like they will continue to occur, that your neighborhood is equipped to deal with the circumstances. That there's not congestion, that you have a pleasant neighborhood, and that it's a beautiful neighborhood that people want to live in, and that you have neighborhoods and green spaces that are nearby to increase the quality of your life, and that you have the kind of dialogue with people so that you can have a sense of community. And so when you want to discuss issues such as whether or not you have stations for electrical charging of automobiles or what have you, you might have a lot of unanimity within your community. So I think that what we really want to see is a kind of holistic community that each community should be, but it should be an affordable community, a community where people can reach out and talk with each other, and where people get out and they exercise, and you don't have different kinds of hazards in the communities, like hazardous businesses that might locate nearby, that you have police protection that comes in and treats people nicely and works with the community to try to identify issues. So that's the kind of community I would like to see, and I think many of you would like to see the same.
You know, for me, when I think about a vision, I think a lot about the shortcomings of where our neighborhoods are at right now, which first and foremost, we need to have neighborhoods that are truly welcoming to everyone, where anyone, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of their background, regardless of how long they've been in Austin or not, can find a place to call home. And I think about where I live, North Shoal Creek. The only reason that my wife and I can exist there is because we found a really low rent on a townhouse that's part of a threeplex back in 2019. At the time, she was just about to go into law school. I was working a job that didn't pay super great. And that's how we made our way into District 7. I can confidently say if that missing middle housing option, an option that is truly missing across the city, didn't exist for us, we wouldn't live in District 7. I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you today. So first off, it's where people can afford to live. They can afford the rent. They have pathways to be able to buy. And then I also think we need to really reckon with our city's car dependency. We have to reckon with the fact that most built environments in District 7, the vast majority of them, tell people that if you don't have a car, you can't exist here. You can't navigate, you can't be a part of your community the way that you want to be if you don't have a car. And when we live in a world where we know there are many people with disabilities who cannot drive, many people who can't afford a car note, who can't afford car insurance, I can't stand that. I don't think we need to tolerate that. So it's gonna be a long road, and I'll tell you, in District 7, it's gonna be a long road to be able to have the sidewalk infrastructure, the bike infrastructure, commercial within residential the way that we need to, but we have to start along that road. And to that point, I'll say, we need to think about the history of District 7, which is, and you can look at the aerial photos yourself, in 1940, this thing was a field, y'all. There was nothing out here but farms, a chemical factory or two, there really wasn't much. The District 7 we live in, almost all the trees including, was a manufactured, a built environment. And when I look at that time frame, when I look at the time that we have ahead of us, we can build something more welcoming, more affordable, less car dependent.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Shaw.
Okay, there we go. Vision for District 7. So what we have going on right now is a transformation. We have communities like mine, neighborhoods that were built back in the 50s, And you're seeing a lot of these houses torn down and replaced with what was a 1,000 square foot house is now going to 4,000. So we're setting the stage. We're building for the next 50 years. That 4,000 square foot house is not what we need. So what Hope did, and I think what is important to me, is we need the variety of housing types, sizes, townhomes, fourplexes. We need that throughout these neighborhoods to support any socio-economic level. That is truly what makes a neighborhood great to me. In El Paso, where I grew up, we had families from all different backgrounds, all different socio-economic levels, and it made for a great neighborhood. And I think we need to get back to that and make sure that's what we build for the next 50 years, because that's what we're building now. 50 years, these houses are going to be there. So also, we've heard about transit. I think that's important. We need, we're going to talk about it later, but pollution, car pollution, #1 problem here in Austin. We've got to stop driving our cars. We've got to use mass transit. Vibrancy. When I was growing up, we used to have football games out in the street. Yeah, the cars would come slowly, you'd let them go by. I don't see that today. I like this idea of opening up our streets for more play, for more interaction. That's important. We'll talk about some of that later. But I think the vibrancy also, when I look at Hyde Park, you have that little Hyde Park Bar and Grill, you got the commercial areas. That is a perfect corner. We should have that close by every neighborhood. The only thing that's missing from a lot of these little vibrant corners, we need a music venue. If you add that to the mix, perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. Mr. Siegel.
Well, I think the people in this room have a lot of common values because we're hearing it, that we want safe communities, welcoming, environmentally sustainable, affordable. I was knocking doors recently and spoke to someone who supervises nurses at St. David's on 38th, and he told me to be an on-call nurse, you have to be at your station within 30 minutes of getting a call. But at that hospital, they can't find nurses who can afford to live within the 30-minute call radius. So to me, the idea that nurses can't afford to live in this community, teachers can't afford to live in the community, the electrical workers who turn the lights back on after an outage, they can't afford to live in this community, that's a huge problem. So what we need to do is not just state the demands, but we need to build a coalition that's going to fight for these. For now, for the years to come, 5 years, 10 years, we need to fight the state legislature. We need to advocate for bonds and major spending packages. We need to build coalitions, and that's something that I think I could bring to this position. I live in Crestview, sandwiched between Lamar and Burnett Road. To echo what Adam said, Burnett Road is a hazard. It's the spine of District 7, but when my daughter rides her bike to Lamar Middle School, she's almost been hit by cars twice, just crossing the street in the sidewalk while walking her bike. That street is a highway that's going through an increasingly dense, important corridor. How do we slow down Burnett, make it safe, make it walkable, so that if you're at Taco Deli in Crestview and want to go to Black Pearl Books, you don't have to dodge traffic while you're crossing the street. Over on the North Lamar side, we need that Project Connect, not just to build the starting point, but we need the Crestview expansion, right? It needs to come all the way up to Crestview Village. It needs to go beyond to the North Lamar bus depot. It needs to go up to Runberg. That's how you're going to get the ridership. We're talking about car culture here, right? That's one of the most damaging things going on in our world culture. We need to get cars off the roads, and the way we do that is by fighting for mass transit. So we need to fight for the money, and we need to fight for the political decision makers to respect the voice of the people here in Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Bautista.
Yeah, so my vision for District 7 is one that is accessible, inclusive, and affordable. In particular, affordability is really important to me. It's something that was really personal in terms of when I first moved to Austin as a low-income student, I had trouble finding housing, and I grew up in West Campus as far as I came of age in that neighborhood, and I'm sure a lot of y'all in the room are familiar with that neighborhood. And I think it's one of the examples in terms of what the city of Austin is capable of creating in terms of neighborhoods. Mueller, of course, is another neighborhood that I believe is a model for the city to continue in terms of planning and urban design. I think, as mentioned by everybody here, the way our roads and our neighborhoods are currently designed are not conducive to multimodal traveling, and so being aware of those issues is really important. And as far as deeply affordable housing, I think that's something that we need to look at more seriously as a city, is how can we make sure that we have affordable housing that is perpetual, that is not just going to be affordable for 40 years. That's one of the things that I will be pushing for as far as if I get elected. In addition to that as well, District 7 is a very diverse district, so one solution is not going to fit the entire district. And so being able to work with the community and understand their needs is something that I can speak to as a community engagement practitioner. One of the things that I've learned in my time here in Austin is that the people here are very open and are willing to work with you if you give them your trust and are honest. And so that's where I stand with my campaign as far as what I've put forth is a vision that I believe people can stand behind and support, and affordable housing and innovative solutions are really behind that. And I believe with my skills and knowledge in urban planning, I can really achieve a vision that is going to benefit the whole community in not just District 7. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batista. The next question is from Movability and Farm and City, and we'll start with Adam Powell. The question is, Council has taken several steps to accommodate robust growth in District 7 and across the city in ways that are more sustainable in a changing climate. Do you agree with the Council's work, and what would you propose to make even more progress in helping our communities live a less car-dependent and lower carbon lifestyle? Mr. Powell.
You know, I do agree with the Council's work, and specifically, you know, we have to talk about the dichotomy of sprawl versus infill. We know that something that exacerbates climate change, that puts us deeper in the hole that we are all literally feeling with heat waves, with the winter storms of climate change, sprawl exacerbates that. I personally experienced it growing up in Leander, which I'll tell you, it used to be that town out there. It used to be a town with no Starbucks. Now it's a town where you can see a Starbucks from another Starbucks. I've seen sprawl in action, and it's not a sustainable way for us to keep building our city. Infill, while there are many things we need to sort out with how we actually do it on the ground floor that I'm grateful Council's been addressing, that has to be the direction of the future. Find ways to more efficiently have more folks in the limited land and resources that we have, and keeping our green spaces, our green areas truly green. And then outside of that, I think when we're talking about how to live a less car-dependent, lower carbon lifestyle, it's about walkability, and not just the street by street to what I always say is the secret is there's no secret. If you want more walkable communities, you build walkable infrastructure. It's also making things within communities that people want to walk to. In my neighborhood in North Shoal Creek, where I'm located, there are a lot of businesses near me as the bird flies, but not that are walkable, not things I can actually get to. So I think we have to break down this sort of segregated use case of commercial versus residential. We have to find ways to weave things like corner stores, bodega type situations, coffee shops, places that people want to be, potential third spaces into the fabric of our residential communities. That's not a straightforward situation, but there are a lot of policies, particularly I think Tokyo is a model of this, where you can find ways to have those small businesses that people want to get to, and that'll be less trips in their car, less trips where they're spewing all the environmental negative stuff that we know is out there. So for me, break down commercial and residential, infill over sprawl.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. And if anybody needs me to read the question a second time, just let me know. Mr. Shaw.
All right, I like this question. Working at Austin Energy for as long as I did, climate change even back in 2009, I led a group that we were one of the first teams in the country to report their greenhouse gas emissions. So this has been on my mind for a long time, and what I bring is kind of the infrastructure experience here, your water and utility departments. I really love what the council is doing with the environmental investment plan. I don't know if you guys saw the price tag and the billions and billions. As you pull together all those plans, we need a lot of money to address climate change. It's going to be really tough. What was missing was the cost-benefit analysis. That's also what I do in my role for the last 30 years. I've had portfolio projects where we have to look at each one of them, look at the risk, evaluate what we're going to do today and what we're going to put off to tomorrow. That's what council's faced with right now. We don't have enough money to do it all. We have to do what really matters and what will protect our people in light of what's coming. On the transit, I said it earlier, yes, we need to build out our Project Connect. What I've noticed is people coming to me with options. Todd, why are we spending all that money? Why don't we just do some more rapid buses? Why don't we do this on-demand idea? And I'm like, we need all of the above. We are behind. We don't have time to like pick one or the other and pick winners. We need all of it. So that's one way we're going to get people out of our cars. And my gosh, just make it fun. I rode down to the soccer game the other day. What on the train? I mean, what a community event, just riding on the train, talking to people. There are real benefits to doing that versus sitting in your car, cursing at the traffic all around you. It was so much fun. We have to start showing people how fun it can be. Were we at 10? Oh, there we go. There's the 10 seconds. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
So let me just say real quick, the climate equity plan, great idea. We need to use that as a role model for ways we bring equity into other programs. So thank you, Counselor, for including that.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Siegel.
Well, first of all, I do agree with what the council has done on a lot of these fronts. Project Connect, amazingly important investment. It's not enough, but it took a lot to get that passed and get that on the ballot. The home initiative, I mean, I think we need to thank Mayor Pro Tem Poole and Louisa Brinsmaid for getting that done. I'll say, as someone who's knocking doors in neighborhoods like Allendale, is not universally popular. There's a few places where there's opposition, but those are some of the tough choices we have to make. I mean, climate change is not something that there's easy solutions, right? We have to make a lot of tough choices. And a lot of this is going to take political courage to bring people together, to build coalitions, to fight for what we need. In terms of what else, I mean, we do need a ton of money. We need this climate investment plan. We need to bring billions. A part of that is getting the federal government to match what we spend through the Inflation Reduction Act. There's a lot of money there. We should be designing projects so we get those reimbursements from the feds and can keep spending. A big one that I like about the environmental investment plan is farms. I mean, if you think about if we spend money to buy farms, grow food locally, that reduces our carbon imprint in a lot of different ways. And I felt like I had to work that in because Farm and City asked that question. Another huge one in terms of our carbon impact, the biggest thing we can do is close the Fayette coal plant. 76% of Austin Energy's emissions. We're talking about countless thousands, I think it's billions of tons of pollutants that this facility is spewing. That every time we turn on the lights, we have a share of this coal plant that is not only polluting the air, causing global warming, but it's polluting the water. That's a huge, huge challenge that we have to take on. And we not only need to close that plant, we need to take care of the workers who are there, make sure they don't suffer as part of the transition. We need to remedy the pollution. And we also need to make sure that Austin Energy doesn't slip in a gas plant, which is what they want to do. They want to build a new gas plant so we can close the coal plant. So we have to fight that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Batista.
Yeah, so I definitely support the actions council has taken in regards to transportation. I think one of the things that has been mentioned, and I'll echo again, is the mode shift in regards to encouraging people to shift modes. It's no secret that public transit is actually not really popular here in the city. Not many Allistonites use it, and I think that's because of the routes, and a lot of that has to do with governance of transportation policy in general. And so with that being said, I think one of the things that I would do if I was elected to council is lead by example. I would begin by riding the bus multiple times a week and making sure that people know that I'm actively in there. And that's something I've already been doing as far as my time as a student. I rode the bus every time I went to campus. I already have an electric bike that I purchased with the city's rebate program. And I definitely am multimodal proponent of that. So I know what it's like to be on these dangerous roads. I do it very often, but I also love the riding transportation in regards to being able to get to a space, although it typically has to be pretty close by, unfortunately. And so just to kind of echo a little bit about the governance structure of transportation policy, Campo is definitely an area that I would definitely advocate for, and as well as Camp Metro. Understanding how we can work together more closely in regards to achieving the goals that we hope to see in regards to our neighborhoods, because as y'all likely know, those two organizations, although they are higher in regards to the level, they do have a significant effect on our ability to implement our carbon lower carbon goals, and as well as our carbon dependent strategies. And so being aware of these issues is something I'm definitely going to be focusing on, and if I'm elected, I will be making a point to ride the bus and do whatever I can to encourage others to ride transportation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batista. Mr. Bledsoe.
Thank you. The climate issue is a major issue in our city. I know the City Council has done a number of things that are good and that are beneficial, and so I think we need to applaud them for that. I think we look at other communities and we can see where maybe the council has done more. But I think that when we look at it objectively, we can see where I think a lot more needs to be done. Let me give you one example here. The climate equity plan is one of the better ones that you're going to find. I think it would address so many of the issues in Austin as we really try to reduce our carbon footprint and to make for a safer community, but it hasn't really been funded. So you have a plan in name, but we need to have a bond issue and some other aggressive actions to make sure that we can fully implement the climate equity plan. I think too, when we take a look at other of the environmental issues, I think we can see the increased problem that we have from the heat island effect in our communities and how really hot they are. And I think we need to take a step back and look at some of the things that are occurring around the world, where we can see cities that have come together and done some really proactive things to bring about some kind of control of the heat impact in their communities. But other things that we can do is, for example, when we're trying to protect our creeks and our watershed, that we need to acquire more property to be able to do that. I agree with what Mr. Siegel said about the Fayette power plant, but we need to make sure if we leave that we leave it in a smart way and not just leave it willy-nilly, because we need to direct what happens afterwards. But there are many things we've done that are good. We need to do many more because we're indeed in a very serious time in regards to climate issues.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe. The next question, and we'll start with Mr. Shaw, is from Safe Streets Austin and Austin New Liberals. In the last decade alone in Austin, over 450 pedestrians and cyclists have been killed in vehicular accidents. Safe Streets Austin has championed several innovations for safer streets, including City Leap, a proposal that aims to implement lane conversions on all Austin-owned arterials to dedicated bus or protected bicycle lanes within 5 years. Do you support innovations like City Leap, and how do you propose Austin make public streets safer, more pleasant places to get around and gather? Mr. Shaw.
Sorry about that. Thank you. So yes, I do support programs like that, and I'll say the one thing you need is people like me out in the street going, slow down! Anyway, that seems to be, because we do have a lot of people driving fast through our neighborhoods, and it is scary. I like the idea of, you've seen it popularized, this living streets idea. Like I said, I feel like streets used to be a place that kids would play, and it was like acknowledged. That was a space where there's people gathering and traffic was slower. And I've seen some of the improvements off Brill Creek in our neighborhood, and then off North Loop, getting onto Airport. It works. You really do have to slow down to make those turns. So the design features that are being incorporated, we need to continue funding those. So I think that's what I would do, is make sure we have the funding to accelerate these programs because they're proven to work. And funding during COVID. What we noticed is we shut down some of the streets, and that was really great. People, like I said, were gathering. We need to look at maybe doing more of that, moving traffic out, out to the main arterials and not let it go right through our neighborhoods when it doesn't need to for the people that don't live there. So the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan, boy, we got a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of mode, trying to shift the mode share, the bike paths, sidewalks. We're never going to have enough money, but we need to keep funding our sidewalks. A lot of it comes down to funding and just persistence and people that want to see their streets be safe places for their kids to play, for bikes to ride. We just need to keep funding them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Siegel.
Right on. Well, thanks for this question. I mean, to me, the idea of Vision Zero, that we're going to eliminate deaths from pedestrian and bicycle accidents, is really important. This is actually one of the most important public safety issues our community is facing, and we don't talk about it very much, right? When we talk about public safety, we're not talking about people who are killed by cars. And this is a huge issue. I support the pilot program down at Barton Springs, the idea that you can narrow the road there, create a safe place for bicycles, and people complain a lot on the front end, but afterwards they're like, oh, that's really nice. That really improved our quality of life. In District 7, we see it with Shoal Creek. I don't know if anyone noticed that when they built those bike lanes on Shoal Creek, the neighbors had a couple things to say about it. And, oh my God, I'm gonna have to park across the street from my house instead of right in front of my house. When people come to visit me, they're gonna have to cross Shoal Creek. So I think another thing, and this goes to the City Leap idea, we do have to talk about the politics, not just the policy, right? We have to be willing to endure a little bit of friction as we move through these changes with the community. Now, we have to maybe not go too fast in some ways. For example, the idea of closing one lane in each direction on Burnett Road, I can imagine how some people are just going to melt down if we bring that idea up. But I already told you how my daughter has almost been hit by a car trying to cross that road getting to school in the morning, so I would absolutely support that. Now, how do we build the coalition to make that happen? I mean, I think we do need to really celebrate what happened, down on Barton Springs. We need to kind of build investments to continue to show how these projects are successful. But the idea that we could bike wherever we need to go, we can walk where we need to go, we can cross streets safely, that traffic's going to slow down inside the central city, these are all good things. They're going to make our city more beautiful, more walkable, more accessible, safer. And so I guess let's see if I have any other notes on this one, because it's a long 2 minutes this time. Well, I'll just wrap up and say I appreciate the question. Thanks, y'all, so much.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Bautista.
Yes, so I definitely support the City Leap program, and like many others, I agree that funding is definitely an issue that we need to look at as far as paying for the improvements to these multimodal lanes. I think something that I could potentially offer as far as finding innovative ways to create that funding source. But nonetheless, improving safety is really important, and that's something that I think I also bring to the table as far as understanding the difference between urban planning and urban design. It ultimately comes down to scale, but I think that's something that's really important as far as it's been highlighted. Burnett Road is a very dangerous road. I live on it. I bike down it. I'm lucky enough that I live close to Shoal Creek, so that's an alternative, a safer alternative for me to take. But I think that it's important for us to continue to have these conversations and be open to ideas in regards to what could be possible on our streets. That's something that we have numerous examples in the city to point to as far as what works, what doesn't work, and how we need to engage with people in regards to how can this work in your neighborhood, and understand that there is going to be some hesitancy because we are a car-dependent culture as of right now, but that doesn't mean we can't change. And as far as funding, another thing is looking at how we can apply to federal, state grants that will help achieve those goals. One of the things that I believe I bring to the table is understanding how the three branches of government work in that regard, and trying to find ways to coexist together. I know it may always seem like we're at odds in regards to transportation, especially with the state, and considering what they're trying to do with 35, which we'll get to a little bit further down. But being able to work with each level of government is important, and that's something I'm really dedicated to, and would look forward to doing if I was elected.
Thank you, Mr. Bautista. Mr. Bledsoe.
I think bike lanes are extremely important, and other initiatives like those are extremely important. I am a biker, and I bike Burnett Road, and you can imagine how fearful I am whenever I'm on Burnett Road. And it's almost like I have found a new world when I get down to Shoal Creek. It's just completely different. And why can't Burnett Road be like Shoal Creek so people can be safe in biking up and down Burnett Road? So that's the kind of vision that we need to have. About 10, 12 years ago, my wife and I went out to convention in Los Angeles. And we took a day and went down to Long Beach because we heard they had great biking in Long Beach. And so we went down to Long Beach and we found out that they had bike lanes and bike traffic signals. So we biked all around Long Beach, and it was one of the greatest things that you're going to find, to have traffic signals where traffic has got to defer to you. So things like that we really need to look at. for our community. But at the same time, let's understand how hot it is, right? And I'm not sure how many of you guys might be biking right now. So even things like what our streets look like and what other cities might have done to reduce the heat effect from those streets and the areas that they're in might be important. But we also have to look at, like if you get on Capital Metro, right? If you try to take, whether it's a bus or you try to get on the transit system, you need to have more accommodation for bikes because you're going to get so many bikes, you know, on those trains. And so we need to be able to make it efficient where you can bike. You know, I was biking to work 35, 40 years ago when I first started out after I got out of law school. So I'm a real biking enthusiast. That's part of the solution, but we need to be serious about it and expand what we're doing and do related things to make it even more effective.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe. Mr. Powell.
I think this is probably the third question where I've said the secret is there's no secret. And it goes off of what other candidates have said, right? Mr. Shaw pointed out the strategic mobility plan is a really great blueprint for how we do these types of things. And when we talk about City Leap specifically, I'm definitely a supporter of it because we've talked a lot about Burnett Lane. It's also Anderson Lane. It's also North Lamar. It's also Palmer. And it's many, many others throughout District 7. If you're curious about which ones, on my website, I have the District 7 guidebook. That's right, I'm doing it. Because my team and I compiled over 70 pages of information, mostly from city sources, and that includes the high injury network on every single neighborhood and area in District 7. Because y'all, I don't pretend to be smarter than the folks who know these answers. Their engineers are wonderful folks who have already done the research, given us the blueprint for how we have safe sidewalks, safe bike lanes, and how we get this 450 pedestrians and cyclist numbers killed over the past decade number much smaller, hopefully to zero. So for me, it's all about getting in the weeds, going area by area throughout the district. And I said all those major arterials, I'm grateful for City Leap and initiatives like it that can get us to a better place. I appreciate Mr. Siegel noting Barton Springs Road. There was a lot of concern about, oh my God, how can that go down to one lane and have an expanded bike lane? And now folks are like, yeah, this is all right. This is doable. It's about pulling the Band-Aid off quickly, urgently, because as we're talking about, people are dying. And so my approach, again, go street by street. And if you look in that guidebook, you look at the high injury network, there are many, many other streets than just those major arterials. And listen to the engineers. Listen to the folks who know those traffic calming measures, the subtle things we can do like pulling curb cuts out, adding speed bumps, widening bike lanes, narrowing lanes, doing those things. And for me as a city council member, putting the political will behind it, falling on that political third rail to make it happen. Because again, people are dying out there.
All right, we are reconvening, and I will ask the next question, and actually I am literally asking the next question because I wrote this question. So this is a question from Leslie Poole. And we will start with Mike Siegel. So here's your question, Mike. We spent 8 years and $8 million on 2 land development code rewrites that included an incredible amount of community engagement, all without much consensus or progress. With a new makeup of council beginning in January 2023, we made significant improvements to the code to meet our housing needs, support transit, and simplify the process. I led on the home initiative to add gentle density in neighborhoods so that Austin can remain a home for everyone. Do you support these efforts? And where would you go from here to meet the needs of current and future residents of Austin? Mr. Siegel, we'll start with you.
Right on. Well, yes, absolutely. And I'll just say, as someone who was a city attorney between 2015 and 2019, I saw on the inside of the building the attempted, Code Next project. And I saw how hard that was. I saw how frustrating it was that all that investment basically went for naught. But it wasn't for naught, right? Because it laid the foundation for the home initiative. I see home as critically important because it does prioritize infill over sprawl. I mean, when you look at the projections for this region, that we're going to grow to 2 million, 3 million people in the decades to come, we really have this very clear choice. Do we push people out to the suburbs, or do we let them move or live in the city itself? And I think we have to make room. And we have to kind of talk to each other. We have to build political support for that demand. And the home initiative, phase 1 and phase 2, is a very important step forward. I also think we have to acknowledge that the city's impact on creating more housing that's affordable for all is somewhat limited, right? If you think about all the tools that impact the price of housing and the availability of housing, well, you have to start with the fact that we live in a market economy where land goes to the highest bidder. And so that is always going to be a problem because that's going to promote gentrification on the east side. That's what's happening before home is even passed, right? You know, historic Black and Latino communities are getting pushed out, and that's a problem. And unfortunately, the home initiative is not going to solve that. Ideally, the federal government would be stepping up, but the federal government gives more money to people like me who own our homes through mortgage tax deductions than they actually spend on promoting affordable housing. So that's a problem. And so we have a thing where I think city councils and mayors should be camping on the steps of the U.S. Capitol demanding $1 trillion federal investment in housing across the country. Because it's not just Austin that's having this problem with homelessness and affordability. Wait, that was 2 minutes? Is that right? All right, well, to be continued. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Batista.
Yeah, so I believe I may be the only candidate right now that has publicly made their view on home known as far as going to the council and testifying, which you can find on my website, edwinfordistrict7.com, under the advocacy tab. But my feelings remain the same as far as I was skeptical of it in regards to, you know, I think it's a right step in the right direction, but at the end of the day, it's still upzoning, and there needs to be certain parameters that need to be taken into consideration around displacement that were not taken seriously, I think, by council. In regards specifically to the equity overlay, I think that was a missed opportunity that could have really had an impact on reducing displacement in the Eastern Crescent. I understand that there was an amendment that was added that will take a look and maybe report on it. But as far as taking that issue seriously, I think that's something I still stand by. And I think one of the things I made clear in that testimony was that we needed innovative local policy. And at that point in time, there wasn't a discussion around the overlay. And so this came after. And I say that because I think that's important to make a point as far as understanding that urban planning is not mutually exclusive from public policy. We need to understand how communities are being built and how policy affects that as well. And so as a planner, I think I bring, as a trained and certified planner, I bring that knowledge and skills to the table. And I promise that if I'm elected, I will be addressing the land development code with a rewrite as far as making sure that it aligns with the values of Imagine Austin. And also making sure that we continue to create innovative local policies like affordability unlocked, VMU mixed use, vertical mixed use, and continue to apply things like site plan light, and also make sure that we do non-market housing as well, like cooperatives as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batista. Mr. Bledsoe.
We do have a new land use policy, and the most important question for us to answer at this point is whether or not we're going to implement it in a way that can lift all the boats in District 7 or in our community. What do I mean by that? I think right now that, for example, developers are ready to move and to utilize the new tools that have been provided for in the new law. But I think that we need to make sure that regular citizens can utilize it too. For example, if you have an elderly parent and you want to move them in near you, you may need to get financing so that you can locate them on your property and build a new structure. You may be an older folks that may have a wayward youngster that you may want to bring home. But there are all kinds of reasons why regular people may want more income. They may want to be able to allow their workers to live on a property, or to be able to provide for young people to come and live on their property at affordable rates. Because I think what we have to understand is affordable means different things to different people, okay? And the way that the rules are now that we're following, affordable leaves out a lot of people. It doesn't reach down to the regular working people in this community. We don't want to have San Francisco where basically you have to be well-to-do or wealthy to live in San Francisco. If you're minority, you can live there if you're homeless, but not otherwise. And so we don't need to have our community turn into that.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe. Mr. Powell.
So I support the home initiative. I testified 3 separate times in support of phase 1. I testified 1 time in support of phase 2, including after I started the campaign. I had people at City Hall saying, listen, don't do this, you're a candidate. No, I want people to know how I would vote and where I stand on this. And the reasons why I support it, it's many different levels. For starters, like I said, I live in a townhouse. It's part of a 3-plex, something that is extremely scarce in my neighborhood and in District 7 writ large. It's something that's been de facto illegal to build for generations now. And then when we talk about the gentrification, when we talk about impacts on the east side, I said this in testimony, I'll say it again, we don't need to guess at what gentrified the east side. We know, dating back to the 1928 city plan, that multiple generations of the current, before these changes, land use and zoning led to the gentrification of the east side. We don't have to guess at that, that already happened. I liked this policy for going citywide, for going to the west of I-35, to the west of MOPAC, and creating new opportunities for missing middle housing throughout different neighborhoods. And to address the conversation about the former land development code rewrites, I agree with the direction the city council is moving and taking these piece by piece. It wasn't just home that I testified for. I testified in support of eliminating parking minimums, a massive change that was something explored within those rewrites, but as Councilmember Poole points out, 8 years, $8 million. When I look at that process, I see 8 years of stalled progress that the current council is making up for, but we have a lot of work to do. And when we do it piece by piece, I think it allows us, first off, to create more legally defensible policies. They're specific. It's not one massive thing that anyone can find fault with. It also creates more opportunities for us to move quicker, get these things going, because again, we're in this crisis. The middle is missing. It really is, and changes like this are things I support and want to see the council keep pushing on so that we build the vibrant communities that we all deserve.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. And Mr. Shaw.
All right, so I was the planning commissioner during Home 1 and was on the working group that helped craft kind of some amendments to provide counsel that I think really helped accomplish what we were really aiming for, which was avoiding the big houses with the teeny house and getting all the benefits. It was really trying to equalize and calibrate the size of those housings. So we really did get smaller units on the lots. So the working group did really good job there. But when the song, I'm serious, when I was helping out, the song that kept going through my mind is, "Who Are the People in Your Neighborhood?" Anybody know what that's from? Sesame Street? I was like, why? I mean, I haven't thought of that song in ages, but it really did ring true. Who are the people in our neighborhoods now and in the future? And it goes back to what I was saying. We really need the variety of housing types, and that's what Home does. I support it. Home 2 was good. We can subdivide. Here's what, finally, we might have some disagreement here. I want to make another run at a comprehensive land code. And the reason is we're missing that comprehensive look. These things work together. They really do. When I was on the Planning Commission during Code Next, you see how all the parts and pieces work together to build the community, and it all works together. It was hard, but I think we really fell short with maybe some of the community involvement. Maybe we could do some things. They finally started thinking about an equity overlay toward the end. The more I look at that, I think that is the right thing to do, is look at how we temper what's going on and make changes, not to disadvantage those on the east side. Maybe there's funding and monies to help them subdivide and build units, but we've got to go big here. 1984, we can't live with that land code anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Okay, this next question is from Rethink 35, and Mr. Bautista, we will start with you. Here's the question. Do you think I-35 should be expanded? If not, do you support alternative visions like Reconnect Austin or Rethink 35? If I-35 is expanded, do you think the city should pay to build and maintain the Cap and Stitch project, a project that would cover portions of the highway with public space at the cost of about $700 million to build and $35 million a year to maintain. Mr. Bautista.
So I definitely support Project Connect. I voted for it in 2020, and I support the visions put forth by Connect Austin and Rethink 35. I think both of those organizations are advocating for really noble causes as far as ways to reduce car dependency, but also prevent expansion in some capacities. But as far as the city paying for it and maintaining that, I think that's something where I need to think more about, because I think the city potentially should be responsible for the cost of it. But as far as maintaining it, I would like to see TxDOT be accountable for that. And if we could advocate for that in any kind of way, I would be supportive of that. But in general, I think Project Connect, one of the reasons why I was supportive of it is because it is a comprehensive system, and I am disappointed that it is in litigation, and I'm sure, like many of you guys, are worried that it will be defeated. I think, considering the recent court rulings by the city, it's not necessarily looking great. I'm of the mindset that we don't need another lawyer on council. We need an urban planner. And I think as far as that goes, I'm offering a vision of how we can look forward to Project Connect in regards to bringing forth a mobility as a service a policy which integrates transportation policy throughout the city as best as possible. That means integrating Cap Metro with scooters, with bikes, the bikes, making sure that it all works together in a seamless ecosystem and you don't have to download all these apps. So that's kind of what I bring to the table as far as making sure that we bring a comprehensive view into how the transportation system works in our city and how ways that we can improve it through governance and through policy, innovative local policy. And I think that's something that no other candidate here has as far as the knowledge and skills to bring that vision forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bautista. Mr. Bledsoe.
I think what we have here is an example of what's occurring around the country, and I think we need to all take note of it, because I think the way TxDOT originally handled this is they didn't do the proper kind of background investigation into what was going to occur in reference to health issues or what have you, the particles that might be generated and all those things. And so by the time they did that, and decided what they were going to do, I think the Biden administration came up with various standards relating to particles, et cetera, that might be acceptable. And I think what's occurred is that now it's clear that the city of Austin already has problems in meeting the standards that have been laid out by the Biden administration, and this will aggravate that issue. And I think what we have to understand is that these kind of particulates that might, the matter that we can't see with our eyes, those things are cancer-causing matter, or health issues at least. We do know, we look in Houston in some areas like Fifth Ward, and we see cancer alleys, and we understand that these things have huge impact. And so we understand that to the extent this is going forward, we have to applaud the people who have decided to litigate this and try to save our community. But I want you to ask yourself, don't you think that we might become a partner of them? Don't you think we might join with them? Because we could provide a lot of power and leeway to what's actually occurring in terms of that litigation. So I think that we need to take a look at that. Now, should we, the caps, should we afford or expend $700 million? I think it's definitely worth it, and we have to do it. Maybe there's some more effective ways of getting that money, but they're absolutely essential if the project goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe. Mr. Powell.
As for expanding I-35, I absolutely think it's a terrible idea. I don't stand for it in any way, shape, or form. I've been proud, this has been a complete honor to stand with Rethink 35 as a volunteer, as an MC for press conference, as an MC for the Wider Won't Work rally, and mostly as a fanboy, a donator, and supporter. I love Rethink 35. I support their vision for restoring it to an urban boulevard just like East Avenue used to be before I-35, that massive mistake, ever came to the city of Austin. And then when we talk about caps and stitches, I'm just gonna be real with y'all. I think it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. It presupposes I-35 expansion, and it's the state pushing that cost onto us, $700 million
All right, when we're already facing a budget crunch, a projected budget crunch, in a few years they'll push us into deficit because of the legislature's 3.5% cap on revenue from property taxes. We're already facing that. $700 million. And then, on top of that, tens of millions to maintain it for a project that by every metric I've possibly seen from the community, our city doesn't want. So I think our agency's been robbed from this. I think the state forcing us to pay for caps and stitches on top of that is insult to injury. I don't stand for it. I don't stand for anything that presupposes I-35 expansion should exist. It's an environmental, an equity, a historical disaster that we need to right the wrongs of immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Shaw.
All right. This is a complicated question for me, but I don't think I-35 should be expanded. I don't know if we can stop it, but another reason for that Mr. Bledsoe pointed out, non-attainment for PM particulate matter 2.5, now I'm going to get all geeky in my environmental engineer stuff, sorry. It's going to drive us into non-attainment. That's going to come with huge cost to all of us, a more burden routing more of those cars through the center of our city. So I think it's going to be a negotiation. As far as the cap and stitch, that's complicated too. The dollar, boy, think about all the money and what we could do with that money throughout the city to support the current plans we already had. So I think it's not a good use of funds. I do want safe passage over I-35. I think we could improve that, keep the cars away from the pedestrians, so maybe some stitches. But overall, I think this is a lot of money, and it's only going to make our environmental issues worse. I don't know how to get them to the table, though. They're a big state entity. They're doing the same at UT, right? They're talking about a cap over there. The board is supporting it. So UT is actually more favorable about capping that area. It gives them more land for development. But it's coming at a huge cost to that university. Similarly, they could use those funds to just repair their darn buildings, which are falling apart. I work there, I know. I think I applaud the work by these groups to try to bring people to the bargaining table that aren't used to coming to the table. So thank you very much for your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. And Mr. Siegel.
Well, thanks, y'all. Yeah, I'm a no on expansion and a no on cap and stitch, just to kind of make it clear at the start. No, I agree with what Todd said. I think we lost this fight, unfortunately, when Greg Abbott beat Beto O'Rourke in 2022, when we lost control as progressives over TxDOT, because these decisions are absolutely politically motivated. And we need to acknowledge we're fighting the fossil fuel extraction industry, we're fighting car culture. I mean, these are immensely powerful and wealthy interests that are absolutely committed to destroying the planet for their own profit. And so it's going to be a long-term battle to, I Rethink did an admirable job trying to organize at Campo. How do we get the votes at Campo to stop expanding freeways? That's by itself is a 5, 10, 10-year organizing project, city by city, county by county. And so we need to build a really broad movement. And I just want to thank Rethink for really opening up this conversation, bringing so many people into it, bringing political momentum, getting the county commissioners court and the city council to stand up, fight back, to show up at Campo, to say, let's not do this. I mean, that's all amazing progress. That's amazing organizing that's happened. But I'll say, I organized an El Paso climate action campaign. I fought the fossil fuel industry. They are powerful, they are wealthy, they are hard to beat. In terms of cap and stitch, I think it's lipstick on a pig. And if we think about $700 million, I mean, right now, we've got city council staff here. We're fighting for $3 million to keep people in their homes with this next budget, right? To basically provide tenant assistance. We're trying to keep after-school programs going. We're trying to open pools in the summer. The idea of using $700 million on this project is, to me, obscene. And if the state wants to pay for it, if the feds want to pay for it, if donors want to pay for it, UT, that's great. I mean, that's better than nothing, but we shouldn't use city funds for that.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. All right. Next question is from Aura, and we will start with Mr. Bledsoe. In 2020, Austin voters overwhelmingly supported Project Connect at the ballot box. With supply chain and inflation constraints, the first phase of light rail construction has narrowed. Opponents to rail have challenged ATP in court, and the threat at the state legislature continues. What are your thoughts on the current state and future of Project Connect? Mr. Bledsoe.
Well, I think that what I feel the future of Project Connect will be, I understand that some things were not undertaken or pursued that maybe had been suggested prior in time, and there are reasons for that, but there are reasons why good people are complaining about that. So what I say is that I think that what's been proposed is good and positive and will definitely help. But I think the other recommendations that are being providing the basis for the litigation are worth considering and discussing as well. So I think this is one of those situations where if you're in the right position and you know the different parties that are involved and you give them integrity and space, that maybe we can sit down and look towards where we go with a phase 2 of this project. Because I think one thing we understand, now that we have home and other initiatives, that maybe what we looked at here won't be all that we need. For example, we need to do studies, for example, to understand with the new construction and things that are occurring, how that's going to impact people, particularly the people who maybe a lesser income. I think when you go to communities, for example, some that I visited around the world, or you look at Aspen, Colorado, where all the people at work live in other cities and have to move there or travel there every day. So I think that we need to start somewhere. I think that's been started. I do agree with some of the recommendations for additional changes, and so I think that with the right people that are involved to push this along in the right way, we can actually make a difference and make it to where it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe. Let's see, Adam Powell.
To put it simply, Austin needs light rail. And before we talk about the future, let's look at the history. Did you know, this is one of my favorite fun facts, that Austin had a streetcar system from 1875 until 1940? Not only are we building towards a future of rail in Austin, but the past had it too. 1875 to 1891, those mule-driven streetcars. When Hyde Park came in, Monroe Shipe was the developer. He founded electric streetcars, and we had those until 1940. Let's steer forward 60 years in that time frame. The 2000 rail vote. That was a rail vote that had a plan that was quite expansive, more expansive than how Project Connect has been sort of narrowed down to be. And that wasn't estimated to be multiple billions of dollars. That was hundreds of millions of dollars. That's still a lot of money. That's so much money, I can't imagine how much money that is, but that's way less than multiple billions. Okay? And so if we look at the history of these votes, we look at the price tag increasing, and most importantly, we look at Austin of the past, knowing that we've had this and we can have it again. I strongly support Project Connect, and I'd have to reconcile with the fact that, look, this doesn't connect to District 7 the way that we were hoping it would. That's disappointing for everyone involved. Let's not sugarcoat it. But it will never connect to District 7. Rail will never exist in District 7 if we don't get the ball rolling and rolling quick. I recognize this might not serve me in the area of Austin that I love and call home, but it could serve my future kids. It could serve my future grandkids and build towards that future where people can live in Austin without a car if they so choose. And we have to think about this from the infrastructure perspective. Part of the reason why I oppose I-35 expansion is because that's a drain on the workforce that we need to mobilize, the builders, the skilled tradesmen, the project managers, the people who are going to build this rail. I-35 expansion is a drain on that, and we need to get that machine going as quickly as possible. I love what the county and the city have partnered to do on workforce development with the academy that they're standing up, but we have to defend, fight for Project Connect, because, y'all, I don't want to know how much it's going to cost if we have to put this on the ballot again in 2030, 2040, or 2050. Let's get it going now.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Shaw.
All right, thank you. I support Project Connect, and I'm kind of tired of, the voters vote on things, and people take it to court and just drag this thing out. I'm tired of sore losers. I mean, stop it. When you go to any great city, what do they have for you? They have great public transit. Why can't Austin be that city? We are a great city. We have people come here from all over the world, and we can't even have a rail system? Give me a break. So, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. So we just need to stick with the plan. All the projects throughout the country that we're funding transit projects, they've gone up. That is a problem. Maybe we have to scale back, but we just have to have a plan, readjust, and keep going at it. So a good plan, keep it funding. I think we come back year after year. I think this community, I'm looking around, I think people will consistently vote to expand our transit system and our rail lines. So no, I support Project Connect. I'm sad that we have to get dragged through the courts. But yeah, as your council member, I will be there and always voting in favor of an expanded rail system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Siegel.
Yes, I really love the idea of Project Connect. I want to protect and expand it. As I said earlier, it needs to go from the airport all the way up to Runberg. We need to build additional lines. I mean, we really need to invest in our future, and it will pay for itself over time. Just if you think about the avoiding of the externalization of all these climate impacts, right? If we're not building this, what are we building? We're building suburbs. We're putting more cars on the road. We're causing all sorts of environmental collapse. So I think we have to come up with better measurements for the cost-benefit analysis. I disagree with Mr. Bledsoe. I think these lawsuits are in bad faith. These are people, like Todd said, they're sore losers. They don't want this. If they didn't have one reason about the increasing price due to inflation, they would come up with a different reason. They want to drag us in front of the Texas legislature to get the legislature to overrule the will of the people. That is not good faith. That's undermining democracy. And to me, the people of Austin democratically voted to have this light rail system, to expand our bus service, and that's what we need to fight for. I spoke to a UT student earlier who talked about the drag being this extremely dangerous place to cross the street, right there on Guadalupe in front of University of Texas. Wouldn't it be beautiful if there were no cars on that street and just a light rail going up and down and bike lanes and all that? I mean, when I heard Todd talking, I was like, can't we have nice things too? That's what we deserve nice things in this community. And to me, the vision of Project Connect, I don't think a lot of people realized it was a tax rate election. We maybe just thought it was another bond, because the vision was what we wanted. The actual implementation, the marginal tax increase, I mean, that's what it costs. I mean, these things cost a lot of money. Look what LA is paying, I think, $1 billion per mile for their subway system. I mean, these things are expensive, but it's worth it. We can afford it. This is a wealthy community. We can have nice things. We can have light rail. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Batista.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I definitely support Project Connect, and we do have rail in District 7. We have 2 stations, Crestview and McCalla. And I think as far as the future goes, if you guys are paying attention, you guys know that the lawsuit is really on a technicality. So I think as far as the city goes, the city needs to look deeper into it, the financial models it uses to fund Project Connect, which is something that could begin in earnest now, because I honestly think that the lawsuit is gonna take Project Connect down. To be honest, like I said, I'm supportive of the project, but comparing it to what has been offered now is clear difference. And so for me, I think that's going to be a challenge in court, but that doesn't mean that we can't fulfill that vision that we have for Project Connect, as far as making sure that we have the political willpower to continue moving forward. And I can promise you that if I'm elected, I will continue to push Project Connect forward, but also explore other ways to improve transit. As I mentioned, there's other ways that we can look into that. But at the end of the day, Austin deserves better transit, and the red line is not enough. If you guys have ridden it, you guys know that the route is really the biggest thing with that, as far as a barrier to where you want to go. I used it when I was a resident in District 4, when I worked downtown, and that was about the only time I ever used a red line. And so I think the biggest thing that Project Connect has going for it is that it is expansive, and it is aiming to cover the city as much as possible. But with this first phase, it is going to be a challenge to see that come true in regards to whatever this lawsuit is resolved, and making sure that we have a vision forward how to approach this, because I think it will be a problem in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Bautista. We'll move on to the question from Sunrise ATX, and we're going to start with Adam Powell. Austin's population continues to grow. In fact, it doubles every 20 years. Austin Energy will need to balance the sometimes competing interests of increasing energy capacity, reducing carbon emissions, and keeping per-user costs down. What initiatives can we pursue on a system-wide and per-home basis to ensure we can meet the needs of our citizens, our climate, and our future?
Yeah, system-wide, Mr. Siegel mentioned it earlier, I've been completely against the Fayette coal power plant still operating. I do want to add the nuance there of, we've done a lot of harm to LaGrange and the surrounding community there, and it is also the case that that power plant is a huge employer for that community. So I take kind of a reparations type approach to, we need to be listening and responding to what LaGrange needs while we move to shut down that coal power plant as quickly as possible. And also, as mentioned earlier, no new natural gas plants. So on a systems-wide level, that's where we need to move. I also want to see more investment in energy storage, right? We know that's the gap that bridges renewable energy sources. And we also know that the past few years have seen an unbelievable, kind of growing by leaps and bounds in technology of batteries and energy storage. So I want to see more openness from Austin Energy. I want to see more urgency to kind of replace those polluting, awful measures that we've gotten our energy from in the past with energy storage to bridge continuity of renewables in the future. And then on the individual level, bit of trivia here. Did y'all know that Austin Energy offers an incentive to have a heat pump water heater in your home? Because I'll tell you, I didn't know until like a month or two ago, right? I look at that, I look at e-bike incentives, I look at some creative ways that the city already has or is already moving towards incentivizing on an individual level, on a per house level, the things that we know are best practices. I've said this in 4, 5, 20 million questions so far. The secret is there's no secret. We know the answers to that. So as a city council member, for me, just the way that I'm knocking doors through the campaign, I want to be knocking doors as a city council member, informing the community what they have at their disposal so that on aggregate, when we help 1 or 2 people thousands of times, on aggregate, we are in a much better state of climate preparedness than where we are right now. There's a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Shaw.
All right, Fayette needs to close. I think it's a little more complicated than some people think. We want to retire our share. We've got to get the people to the table, LCRA, ERCOT. Their boards are elected by the governor and lieutenant governor. So it may take a little longer, but that needs to be our goal. We need to be persistent. I just want to see the price tag. I want it to be transparent, how much it will cost. It's got to be done. It just may take, there's some regulations out there. We got to get Democrats in office ruling both houses. That will drive these coal plants out of business because the regulations will shut Fayette down. So we got to keep pushing for that. Here's the thing about where Austin Energy is. They're in a tough spot. They've got to provide dispatchable power out there in the grid to sell, and then we buy it back. So what they do, they sell in and we buy back, so when costs are high, we don't pay that high price. And what that does, this is the crazy thing about the ERCOT market, that's how we get the monies to pay for all these wonderful programs. We have more renewables than most cities in the state and throughout the country. We are a leader. We also have one of the best demand-side management programs. We lead in so many different ways. But we're a victim of our success with the renewables. There's not enough transmission to get the renewables into our city, and we're paying a high price for that congestion. The market is disadvantaging leaders like Austin that want to change for the better and fight climate change. So we're going to have to be really smart about it because that balance that was mentioned earlier, if we do this wrong and we don't have that dispatchable power to put out there, we got to find something besides gas. But we got to have that to sell in, to support the programs, to make sure we don't have blackouts and we don't disadvantage folks by high electric rates. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Siegel.
Thank you. Adam and Todd stole a lot of my thunder on this question, but I love the alignment. I mean, yeah, closing Fayette is the biggest thing we need to do, and we need to negotiate with ERCOT, we need to negotiate with LCRA. This is a long-term project. It's not easy, but we have to keep pushing in the right direction. When I ran for Congress, some of you know in 2020 I was the Democratic nominee for Congress in this region in a district that went from Lake Travis to Houston, and so it included Fayette County. I went out there, I spoke with the neighbors in places like Fayetteville. I know the harm that plant has done to the community, and also I think of it as a great opportunity. I support the idea of a Green New Deal, right? A Green New Deal is trying to do three big things. It's trying to decarbonize, it's trying to take care of workers as we decarbonize, and it's promoting environmental justice, which means cleaning up this pollution, right? And to me, if you think of that plant, it could be maybe a 5-year project from now. It might take that long, might even be longer. But if we can close the plant and figure out what to do with that space next, there are rail lines that go to that property, massive electrical transmission lines. That could be a geothermal plant. It could be massive battery storage. We could basically build the renewable energy economy by closing Fayette and building something new. And I think Austin Energy, we need to prod them to be more creative. This idea that they want to build a gas plant to replace the coal plant, to me, it's very short-term thinking. Yes, we do need to have, there's these dispatchable energy baseload voltage problems. I could do a word salad. I've learned about 1/10 of what I need to know about this. But yeah, there's issues. ERCOT's not going to let us close the coal plant tomorrow because of this voltage issue. But that's a huge project we need to take on. If I want to throw a second issue out there, to me, in response to this question, weatherization. Okay, we haven't talked much about renters in this conversation. Over half the city is renters. Multifamily properties often have terrible insulation, very high electric bills, very high water bills. Weatherization is a way where we can invest, subsidize the refurbishing of these multifamily properties, and that will put money in the pockets of working class people.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Batista.
So I'll echo what everybody else said as far as closing down Fayetteville. And of course, there's many challenges with that. And so we have to be mindful of that as far as how we address that issue. Nonetheless, it needs to happen as soon as possible. As far as initiatives that the city could take citywide, I think one of the things that has been mentioned as far as the initiatives that the city has put forth as far as incentivizing efficient appliances, but also incentivizing low pressure water features, and also batteries, just trying to find ways that we can prepare our communities for climate change as far as giving them the resources that are needed during those times of stress. And as far as system-wide, one of the biggest contributors to at least water goes is fixing leaky pipes, and so that's one of the things that could be done to fix that issue. But as far as energy goes, we need to expand our share of modes for creating energy. That includes wind, solar, water, looking at any kind of way that we can harness the energies that we have available through nature and work with nature instead of against it. And so that's one of the things that I am deeply committed to doing if I'm elected. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batista. Mr. Bledsoe.
Well, I think there are a number of things we clearly could do and should do. It takes the will to be able to make them happen. I think number one is we have a great climate equity plan. We have not really implemented the climate equity plan. One of the things that's an easy thing to do is why not configure all of our city buildings so that they come into compliance with the climate equity plan as setting an example for what could be done. Number two, why don't we fully fund the climate equity plan so that we can actually make the kind of progress that we need? Number three, why don't we take a look at what's actually being done in many places around the world? Most of the ideas have come to the city. The city is doing a much better job on these issues than most cities. So I'm not trying to be critical of the city, but what I'm saying is that we've got some of the greatest minds that just walk the streets of our city, and they have great ideas. Why can't we come together and put those ideas together and have an affirmative plan to say we want this in our community? When I travel around the world and I go to Europe and places like that, I can see how they're so much further advanced than we are, whether it's the electrical cars or what have you, the way that their streets look and they're configured, what they do in their communities. So they're much more adept at doing these things. There's no reason why Austin can't do what they're doing in Europe. And I think all the other things that we've talked about today, whether it's bike lanes or transportation plans or making sure Project Connect is implemented and then added to later on, because we need to get more and more of a connection in the area. All those things need to happen, and I think if they happen, that we'll actually be able to say that our community is where it should be, because it should be an example to others in our state.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe. All right, this is the last question, and then we'll have a closing. So we're going to start with, let's see, Todd Shaw, I think, for this one. And this is a question from Environment Texas. With the Highland Lakes currently at 44% empty, our water supply is increasingly at risk with climate change. Yet a third of Austin's water is spent watering lawns. City Council has approved policies like Water Forward to protect and conserve water. Part of the implementation plan for Water Forward includes limits on the amount of irrigation allowed in new homes or businesses. Do you support these measures, and what other policies would you consider to safeguard the water needs of our growing population?
So this is big. Climate change, this is with the increased population growth. Water is going to be the #1 issue here in this area. We need to get serious about our water. I grew up in El Paso, and the rock lawns were beautiful. I mean, they were porous, larger stones. So, I think we're going to see more of that over time as we evolve into having less water for these things. So I do support Water Forward. The other simple things like leak prevention, we got just conservation within each home. We can do more of that. Reclaimed water, we need to make that required throughout the whole city. UT right now is bowing out of all their new buildings on taking on reclaimed water. We need to develop that relationship and show why it's in their best interest to use reclaimed water as well. But it's all the businesses. I was on several cases where the developer said, well, that's going to cost too much. Well, we are shortchanging those people in the long term because it's going to cost a lot more. What's happening here? Water rates are going up. They're going to keep going up. We've got to start making this mandatory and not optional. The other thing, if you look at the Water Forward plan, I was digging into it. We've got to look at more innovative ways to store water during droughts. There's an aquifer storage pilot that's going to be funded here soon. San Antonio is already doing this, from what I understand. I think we need to start getting a little more serious and run this pilot and push up the timeline for getting these storage options done. I'm worried we're going to head into a drought and we're not going to be ready. So there are plans, but I think we need to more rapidly fund the pilots and get these things done. But yeah, Water Forward, go look at it. There's a lot of good things in there, and we just need more money to start storing more water now, today.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Siegel.
Thank you. Well, yeah, the idea of discouraging lawns, I love that idea. We'd have to figure out how to do it without the state preempting us, right? That's always, whenever we have a good idea in Austin, how can we create a regulation that's actually enforceable? But we need to use every incentive possible. I agree with Todd in terms of Water Forward. If you look at it, this is a massive plan. It's like really comprehensive. It's basically a 100-year plan for our region. And this is a massive issue, whether you're talking about storage, reclaimed water. One of the interesting ideas I've heard is like, how do you almost turn water conservation into a game, right? Like, could there be an app on your phone? Okay, this is your water usage for the day, for the week. We're going to give you points if you reduce your water usage by 10%. I mean, we need to do this for electricity and for water. Any tool we can give people so they're self-monitoring, because what is the difference between a 10-minute shower and a 9-minute shower, right? What is the difference between watering your plants for 8 minutes or 5 minutes? I mean, these are the things that we need to get people more involved with and thinking about more. One water issue that we also have to think about is actually related to the Fayette coal plant. Some of you may know that one of the most valuable assets we own as part of our co-ownership of the Fayette coal plant is access to the water supply. And a tremendous amount of water is used in the plant operations. And so if we close that plant and we negotiate our way out of it, then that opens up a big source of water. But we need to be very innovative in all of this, so I would just reiterate that this water forward plan really does have the strategy, and we just need to figure out how to implement it.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Bautista.
Yeah, so this is an issue that has affected me personally. I grew up in Wichita Falls, Texas, which in 2010 experienced a devastating drought, as much as did the rest of the state during that time. But in particular, that was a life-changing moment for me in regards to leading me to where I am today. I remember very vividly having to conserve my water and all the news of the stage 5 droughts and our lake literally being less than 20% full, and going out on the dry lake beds was something that I'll never forget. But it ultimately led me into the field of planning, and water I know is something that's very important to this community as far as understanding where we move forward with the resources that we have. And as mentioned, I think water conservation is something incredibly important, as well as incentivizing people to learn more about how they can reduce their usage. And one of the things that came out of my experience in regards to the city that I'm from, and I'm very proud to say, as far as the ingenuity from that city that continues to inspire me to this day, is that they were one of the first cities in the country to use direct reusable potable water, which is a long word for saying treated wastewater. And so I think that's one of the strategies the city can look forward to as far as ways to preserve the water that we have and make the best uses if we can out of it. One of the other things that we need to strengthen is our regional collaborations with other communities in the area, because this is not just an Austin issue. This is going to be any community that's within range, and so we need to have close relationships with the cities, because they will have an impact on us. And that's one of the things that I think I can really bring as far as making sure that we take a holistic view and engage as many people as we can on this issue, because this is going to affect each and every one of us when the time comes, and maybe sooner than we may expect. And so that's one of the things that I'm really seriously thinking about what I can do. I went to the meetings, the Water Forward meetings, and I'm looking forward to anything that comes forward.
Thank you, Mr. Bautista. Mr. Bledsoe.
The Water Forward plan. The Water Forward plan, I think, by and large, is a good plan that should be followed. I think that water is indeed an enormous issue for our community. I think that we have to understand with the likely droughts that we'll continue to have in the future, what we've seen with climate change. I think with the issues relating to ground cover, et cetera, that we might see in terms of construction, that these things might even get exacerbated. Even the I-35 project could have some impact on that. So I think we have to understand that water is something we need to sit down and take a major look at, because I think that when we talk about new homes, yes, those will add more of a strain on what we do have that's available. The city has now expanded or increased the amount of water that's allowable for use, and so that's another issue there, that the city's gone ahead and expanded the amount of water that we can use. And so I think those things are going to put pressure on us as we go forward, and we're not taking a look at what could actually be occurring with the environment and other things. And so I think that in terms of water conservation, I think that in terms of what we do in terms of when you water your lawn, I think that some of the other great projects that we've had in the city that the council had the foresight to do, like for example, when you decide to xeriscape or things of that nature, maybe some kind of benefits or tax credits or things along those lines, we need to be more innovative to make sure we get more people to buy in, because there's more demand on our water.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe. Mr. Powell.
So I think to frame this question, the urgency of this, we've all kind of alluded to this. Water is a bank that we can only withdraw from. And it is true that as the city continues to grow, we have to be extremely intentional about how we're withdrawing from that bank and making sure that the account doesn't run dry. And so, to directly address the question, yes, Water Forward is, like others have noted, a very comprehensive, very long-term plan, gives us a really good guidebook and playbook to move forward. There's some really positive things happening, like the Purple Piping Project with reclaimed water. But I want to pull us back to something I mentioned earlier, which is the dichotomy of sprawl versus infill. Especially, let's remember the question, y'all. A third of Austin's water being used for lawns, right? So I think when we look at sprawl versus infill, we see infill as efficient water usage. We see sprawl as extremely inefficient water usage. We see sprawl as something that encroaches on watersheds, on currently green spaces. I want to keep the green spaces, y'all. I want to keep those spaces green and work with the land that we have and maximize it and keep it efficient. So when we look at that, and particularly in the current conversation of the climate bond, for some of the folks who have been staying in the loop on this, there's a climate bond being proposed, Councilmember Ryan Alter. It's looking more likely to be in 2026, but a big part of it, actually the most expensive part of it, is acquiring 20,000 acres of land specifically for the subject, for water. And I love that. I love the idea of having those acres of land be public, not beholden to private interests where who knows what happens to those watersheds, who knows what happens to the water involved in that massive amount of land. Let's own it. Let's have the community figure out how we maximize that because, again, y'all, this is a bank we can only withdraw from. And the more we sprawl out, the more we continue to use water in ways like the question mentioned, the worse situation we're going to be in. We have to be efficient about it.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. All right, we are now at closing remarks. So we're going to lead off with Mike Siegel. You want to bring us home on your closing statement? You have 1 minute.
Well, I want to thank all of you, everyone at this table, our moderators. I think we have a lot of consensus here. There's a lot of wonderful ideas. I learned new things today. But I think the question for voters is who's best positioned to get things done? And I would put forward that because of my experience both as an organizer, as a city attorney, I'm most equipped to do this. 3 examples of coalitions I've been a part of. I was the lead lawyer in a fight to make sure we could have masks in local area schools during the COVID pandemic. That's a case I won. As a leader of Ground Game Texas, a local policy organization, I helped decriminalize marijuana in the city of Austin. I've taken on campaigns, even I led the Just Housing PAC to help elect Zoe Kadri to City Council in December 2022. I've got political experience, but I've also been in the building. I've written policy. I co-authored our paid sick leave ordinance. I've advised the city manager, City Council on key areas. I've been to court for the city. And so I think I could help accomplish a lot of the ideas on the table today. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Shaw. I'm sorry, I've got to go to the back. Oh, hang on a second. Mr. Batista.
All right, so thank you everybody for being here today. I really appreciate you guys listening to each and every one of us. I'm really here because I am totally in love with the city. I love the people here, and I truly believe that this is my civic duty to be here and share a vision that I think will resonate with people. And I hope that you take the time to look at my website, edwinfordistrict7.com, and take a look at my campaign platform, which is really comprehensive. And in addition to that, I came of age in the city, and I really have a close connection to that. And I believe that we are at a crucial time in our city's history, and I really believe that we need generational change. And as a 26-year-old, I'm the youngest one running in this cycle, and I'm proud to say that I'm here to represent young people. And you know, it's not, if it hasn't been clear already, I hope that it is now, that I'm not someone that walks away from challenges. I run towards them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batista. Mr. Bledsoe.
I want to thank all of you for taking your time and coming out here tonight. I think the choice that you have to make is whether or not you're going to decide to have someone that's going to represent you, that's going to fight for you. I think I have a history of being able to fight for people in so many different ways. I have fought many battles that have made our community better. I fought the battles that brought for fair promotional exams for the police. I have fought battles that provided for cameras in the police vehicles of our cities. I have fought battles that have led to us having proper representation in the United States Congress. I have fought many, many battles for the people of this city. And I believe that because of my unique background, my unique experience, that I can bring a sense of morality and a sense of justice to within our city government. So I would ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe. Mr. Powell.
So I'm grateful to look around this room, see a lot of folks who have supported the campaign, and hopefully some new supporters. So I'm going to give you all some action items. Step 1, please check out my website. AdamForAustin.com. You can do FOR or the number 4. We have both domains. They go to the same place. Step 2, I haven't mentioned this yet, y'all. This is my birthday week. I turned 30 on Monday, and all that I want for my birthday is to reach out to as many District 7 voters as possible. This Sunday from 10 to 2 p.m., you don't have to be there the whole time. If you come for 5 minutes, I love you for it. You can come make calls to District 7 voters, get our word from the campaign out there. You can find the RSVP link on my website there. Another thing, we have a volunteer Discord server that we're getting going. I see a lot of y'all in the Urbanist Discord or the Rethink or the Sunrise Discord. After this, once I'm done talking after this, I'm going to put my links to that Discord there. I want to see y'all sign up. And the last thing I want to do is thank all the organizations that have come to the table to support this, because what I see, the commonality is hope. And as someone who has no intention, I said this in my press release, I mean it, no intention of running for state ledge or Congress, I'm here to fight the battles to make my hometown a better place for future generations. They all deserve it, and I know you all agree with me.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. And Mr. Shaw.
All right, thank you. Thank you to Ora and to the other organizations that put this on. Great crowd, great energy. 1981, I came here. I'm going to tell you guys, I'm 60. I know that's a shock to you guys. I know I don't look 60. But I've been here a long time, and I've seen a lot of changes. But I see the energy in this room, and when I go out there and I see people that really dream of Austin continuing to be that place that is so special. We have led in the environment. We have led in innovation, high tech, music, so many areas. This city that's why people want to live here and move here. We can be that great city. I want to bring I know there's fights. I'm not going to fight really, against the people internally. I want to get us together in the same room and work things out. I think a lot of times we're working against each other in so many ways. The strength I bring is I have got years of working in public service and bringing people together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. And thank you, everybody. Let's give a real big round of applause for our candidates. And also to all the fabulous organizations that came together tonight and that work together in our community every day, all year, for putting on this forum. Thank you, Ara, and everyone else, and y'all have a great evening.
And thank you to our wonderful